All right, class. We're gonna return to your desk. You're gonna pull out a piece of paper and a pencil, and we are going to start the lesson today. We're gonna learn about sedimentary rocks. Okay? So, class, in the past we learned about igneous and metamorphic rocks, but today we are going to learn about sedimentary rocks. If you point to the board, there are different examples of sedimentary rocks along with pictures and different kinds. Okay? So we're gonna do a fun little scavenger hunt. You're gonna find one rock around the room that's a sedimentary type of sedimentary rock, and you're gonna come back to your desk and write one characteristic. All right, so go ahead and go. You already found them. Okay, you can go ahead and write the characteristic. Okay, so you wrote white and you wrote tan. That is, you both determined one characteristic of a sedimentary rock. Okay? And if you look at the board, we have the objective of the lesson for today. It's given manipulatives of the categories of rocks. The students will identify and write differences between the categories of rock, igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary with 3 out of 4 correct or 75% accuracy. Okay? And in the past couple lessons, we learned about how metamorphic rocks form and how igneous rocks form. Can you guys tell me how metamorphic rocks form? Yes, Marna?
They're formed with fossils. Like accumulation of rocks and substances.
So metamorphic rocks are formed when rocks change their original shape and form due to intense heat or pressure.
Oh.
Okay? Igneous rocks are formed when magma or molten rock have cooled down and solidified. Okay? And today we're going to learn how sedimentary rocks form. Okay? Okay? All right, and we discussed some of the differences about how metamorphic rocks and igneous rocks, the differences between those, how they form, right? One forms by molten rock and the other change their shape and form due to intense heat or pressure. Sedimentary rocks are formed by accumulation of other eroded materials such as animal particles, plant particles, or different types of fossils. And we're going to learn more in detail about that today. But I want to go ahead and add to our difference chart about how sedimentary rocks are formed. So you're going to go ahead and add how sedimentary rocks are formed, and I have it listed on the board. It is through different animal materials or other particles. And it is also right here in front of you. Okay, so you added animal materials. And you added plant particles. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're gonna keep a hold of these rocks that we found in the scavenger hunt. We're gonna use them throughout the lesson, so I want you to keep great care of them because throughout the lesson we're gonna be pointing to them and they're gonna be kind of like a visual for you guys so you can see how sedimentary rocks are in real life with your hands. Okay. So now we are going to start the PowerPoint presentation really fast. Okay. Okay, so sediments are tiny particles that form sedimentary rocks. Okay, and sediments are particles of rocks and minerals. So you guys put animal materials, which is also particles of plants, that's Dave, you put particles of plants, and particles of bone, shells, or other materials. How does sedimentary rocks forming differ from metamorphic rocks?
They're coming from different material, plant and animal materials that break down.
Right, because metamorphic rocks are formed when rocks change their shape. They're not formed from other fossils or other animal particles. Okay. Sediments can be picked up and carried away by water, and then here's a picture of water, wind, so they lift up those animal particles and those plant particles, and that's carried through water, carried through wind, and also carried through ice, and those sediments get layered up, and that's what eventually causes sedimentary rocks. The sediments are carried and dropped off in a new place. Over a long period of time, new layers of sediment are carried and dropped on top of the old layers. So there's multiple layers of sediment, which then form sedimentary rock. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and refer back to the rock you found in your scavenger hunt, and I want you to determine how many different layers there are in the rock you found. If there's one, you're going to hold up one finger. If there's two, you're going to hold up two fingers. Okay, Marty, you have 5.
I think it's 5. 2.
2. All right, Dave, you determined 2. Okay. The weight of the layers of the sediment press down and on other layers, and the minerals in the sediment dissolve and glue the layers together. These layers of sediment pressed together form sedimentary rocks. So those different layers of, whether it be fossils, whether it be animal materials, whether it be many different particles, get pressed down with weight and form sedimentary rocks. Okay, so now we're going to talk about 3 different types of sedimentary rocks. There's limestones, which are usually white, which Dave, I think you have a limestone, and form on the bottom of the oceans from the remains of living things such as bones of plants. So you see that little fossil in there? That's an example. Sandstone, bits of sand and quartz sediment together to form sandstone. When it forms in water, its layers sometimes look like ripples. Okay? Maybe you have sandstone, right? Okay, and then there's conglomerate. Conglomerate are formed from larger rocks, meaning lumped together, making them coarse and clumpy. So I bet that texture is very rough. Okay? Okay? Sedimentary rocks are useful for many different things. They're used in civil engineering for different projects like concrete. They're used for limestone. They're used for shale. They're fossils from sedimentary rocks. There's limestone, shale, like in the shell. Okay? Now, we're going to pause on this slide, and I'm going to ask you to pull out your whiteboards, and I'm going to ask you to respond to those questions on your whiteboard, and you're going to hold it up when you're done. Explain where you have seen sedimentary rocks in your daily life and give an example. And you can do this whether it be housing, roads, tunnels, canals. Those are all different ways that you can see sedimentary rocks in daily life. Okay, so creek by your house, okay. Found in rivers, good. That's great, that's great. Okay. So that is the end of the PowerPoint. Now we are going to, in the past 2 lessons, we learned about metamorphic and igneous rocks. And we did 3 types of tests on them. We did permeability, and we did a scratch test, and we did an acid test, okay? And that determines the hardness, whether it's able to dissolve in water, and other different properties within the rock. And we use those to help to learn more about those rocks. We're also going to do that today, okay? So now, but first, we're going to talk about the differences between metamorphic, sedimentary, and the 3 different types of rocks. And I'm going to ask you to add one more difference to the chart before we begin. And whether that be how they're used, whether they can be found in houses, whether they can be found in tunnels, like maybe even adding how they're found in, or even a different type of rock.
So they're found in water bodies and seas and oceans. Sedimentary rocks are.
Yes.
So what do you want me to write down?
So you're going to write down that, and you're going to add it to the difference chart. All right, so you wrote civil engineering. It's used for civil engineering. That's very important. I mean, you can't imagine what life would be like if we didn't have sedimentary rocks and it wasn't a part of civil engineering.
For building,
Yes, and Dave wrote that it's found in cement. I wonder what would happen if we couldn't cement down buildings and stuff, if we didn't have that. Maybe our buildings wouldn't be as strong, and we just had a hurricane. That would be bad, right?
Yeah.
Be dangerous. Okay, so now you are going to write a response to a question I posed to you in your science journal. When you're done, you're going to turn and talk to your partner and discuss the question. Okay? Compare and contrast sedimentary rocks with igneous and metamorphic rock. Igneous and metamorphic rocks. done, you're going to turn and talk to your partner and discuss, and then we're going to talk as a whole class.
What's the difference?
You're going to just,
Eroded substance.
okay? So now that you've turned and talked to your partner, how did your partner's answer different for yours? And what did your partner have that you didn't have, and vice versa?
I talked about how they were formed, but he mentioned the materials.
So he mentioned the materials, okay. But you guys each found different differences, right?
Yes.
All right. So now, before I have you guys break up into your groups and do the 3 kinds of tests, I know it's vinegar, it's very strong. So I'm going to first model how to do the tests, and then you're going to break up into groups. And with any type of experiment, we need to be safe, okay? There's no dangerous chemicals, but of course we don't want to put it in our eyes, and we want to be safe with everything, right? We want to keep everything on the table as much as we can. Okay, so first I'm going to do a permeability test. And permeability test means how well the rock dissolves water, okay? So this is obviously the vinegar. You can smell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the water, okay? Okay, we're just gonna do this. Just a little drop. Makeshift pipette. Okay. Now we're looking at it. Let's look. It's mostly dissolving that, right?
Yeah, you can't tell any difference.
Yeah, you can't really even see the water. Some of the water that I dropped on the side you can see. Right, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay? So that's the first test you're gonna do, okay? So all you need is a pipette, some water, and your rock. But we're not doing that yet. We're gonna do that during down the road, okay? And next we're gonna do 3 types of scratch tests. So we're gonna scratch the rock with our fingernail, and we're gonna see if it scratches or leaves a mark. I don't see a mark being left. Do you guys see a mark?
No.
No? Okay. So it's pretty hard rock, right? My fingernail can't scratch it. Okay, now let's try a nail. I see some marks, but there's not like I can't make a huge scratch, right? Okay, so now let's try some sandpaper.
Mm-hmm.
That left a mark, right? That took off some, right? You guys all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last test we are going to do is an acid test. We're going to do vinegar because obviously acid isn't safe, okay? And one thing we want to look for is the calcium carbonate in the fossils make some sedimentary rocks to fizz when they come in contact with vinegar. So if we drop our rock in here and it fizzes, maybe there's some type of fossil in it, okay? So we're going to go ahead and put it in here like that. Spilled a little bit. Do we see any fizzing?
No fizzing.
No fizzing. Okay, so we would write down no fizzing. Okay? So you see on the data sheet, you see there's 3 lines there. There's recording for it. Did the rock scratch on the nail? Did the rock scratch on the fingernail? Did the rock scratch on the sandpaper? Did the water dissolve on the permeability test? And then the last one is
So
is
there's 5
it
of them.
is it fizzing? It isn't fizzing. Okay. Okay, so now you are going to break into groups and you are going to do a test on this rock as well, all 3 of the tests, and I am going to watch and observe you guys do it. So
On
first
this
you're going to
rock?
first you're going to start with the permeability test where you're going to take a pipette and you're going to put a little bit of water on it, see if it dissolves it, and you're going to record your answer. Okay? And make sure you're talking as a group and you're discussing. Is it dissolving? Is it not dissolving?
Didn't work.
Okay? So now that you guys have completed all 3 of the tests on the rocks and determined different properties on the rocks, we're going to review your findings, okay? So for the permeability, did it dissolve with water?
No.
No, it didn't. So there was a bunch of water. What about the scratch test? Did your fingernail scratch it? Did the nail scratch it?
No.
Did the sandpaper?
No. Yes.
Yes, the sandpaper did. Okay, slightly. Okay. And for the last one, the acid test. Did it fizz at all? Was
No.
there any fossils?
No fuck.
Okay. So now that you have completed those 3 and we have reviewed the results, I'm going to pass out the data sheets for the independent practice. You're going to see that it's exactly like the data sheet that you had earlier for the 3 tests, how you recorded it, but there's a little thing on the bottom where you're going to describe the 3 differences. You're going to write how sedimentary rocks are formed, where they're found, and 1 characteristic about it at the bottom, okay? So you are going to pull out the rock from your treasure hunt, and you are going to conduct a permeability test, a scratch test, and an acid vinegar test on the rocks independently and answer all the questions on the data sheet. Be sure to look at the bottom to include the differences between the 3 types of rocks. When you are finished, you're going to turn into your work and return to your desk silently. Okay? So now that you have completed the independent practice, fast forward a little bit on time, okay? I'm going to ask you to determine what type of sedimentary rock that you guys first found in the scavenger hunt that you just did those 3 tests on. What kind of rock do you think it is? Do you think it is a sandstone? Do you think it is a limestone? I want you to write that rock down. Whether it be chalk. So Dave, you wrote down limestone, and Marta, you wrote down sandstone. Okay, you wrote that on your whiteboards and you held that up for me to see. Great job. Okay, now Marta, I'm gonna call on you, and you are going to read the objective on the board. The objective is right here.
Given manipulatives of the categories of rocks, the students will identify and write 9 differences between the 3 categories of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, with 75% accuracy or 3 out of 4 correct differences.
All right, so great job. You guys all met the objective. Now we are going to, I'm gonna ask a few review questions to just kind of like wrap up the lesson. You are going to record your answers on your whiteboard, and you're gonna hold it up when you are done, okay? So you're gonna predict what your rock will look like in 100 and 1,000 years. What do you think your rock might look like? Okay, so you wrote that it might be bigger, that it might be more large, that there might be more fossils in it, Dave. That's what you wrote. Okay, great job, guys. So we learned today that sedimentary rocks are formed by the accumulation of other eroded materials such as plant particles, such as animal particles, and other fossils, right? And that's carried through wind, water, and ice. And that different pressures on those sediments, which then cause sedimentary rocks. And those are usually found in the water bodies, such as the sea or the oceans, whether metamorphic rocks are found on Earth's surfaces. And igneous rocks are found on Earth's crust or mantle because they're formed when magma or molten rocks have cooled down and solidified. Okay? So the next question I'm going to ask you guys is apply what you just learned about and discuss where sedimentary rocks are usually found. And you're going to write that down on your whiteboard and then hold it up when you're done. Okay, so Marta, you wrote water, ocean, lakes. Dave, you wrote usually found in the water. Great job, guys. Okay, and the third question, justify what would have happened if sedimentary rocks could no longer be used for civil engineering. They can't be used to make concrete. They couldn't be used for houses. They couldn't be used for tunnels. What would happen? Maybe weaker homes. That's a great answer, Dave. Nowhere to live or work. That's a major issue. So we learned today how sedimentary rocks are formed, different characteristics, where they're usually found, and how they differ from metamorphic and igneous rocks, okay? So thank you guys for a great lesson. We all met the objective today. You guys, all right.